Welcome to Biorhythms. We're at the Wells Theater, built in 1913, home of the Virginia Stage Company. And we're with a very good friend of mine, someone that I've known for almost 30 years, Mr. Edward Morgan.
How are you, sir?
Welcome to Biorhythms.
Thank you, Terrence.
Man, I'm so glad to have you on the show.
It's great to see you, and it's great to be here.
And
Thanks.
we go back for quite a few years. We did After Fugar's The Blood Knot at Christ Museum.
Right,
Yeah.
with the Norfolk Players Guild.
Yeah, 84, 85, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great show, a great opportunity to work with you and meet with you. Tell us about K2.
K2 is a play set on the second highest mountain in the world.
Some 28,000 feet.
Yeah,
plus.
just about, right? It premiered in the early 80s. Patrick Myers wrote it, started at Arena Stage, and then went to Broadway. It's not done often because it's so technically challenging, but it's a wonderful dramatic situation in which two best friends, are kind of trapped on a ledge. One of them has a broken leg, and they're trying to get down. They've made it to the summit, but they're trying to get down and survive.
What attracted you to a drama like this?
Well, it's a very good drama for this space, for this stage. This stage wants a certain amount of spectacle, and it's a wonderful piece for that. It's big choices and big drama. It's a very masculine play and gritty and emotional, and those are all things I am drawn to.
Okay. I wanted to see if there was anything about that particular piece that spoke to your personality as you approach theater from a creative angle.
Sure. I mean, I had read it years before, and then actually Chris Hanna came to me with it and asked me, was I interested? But then in rereading it, as I took it on, I found in it a couple of things that really spoke to me. One was the sense of brotherhood, the sense of loyalty, or two people who are kind of opposites, kind of a Cain and Abel story almost, and in this version, sort of Abel redeems Cain, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So the dramatic stakes and the context really spoke to me, and then just the sheer theatricality of the piece. This is a play with real climbing, mountain climbing, rock climbing on the set. And it's more than any play I've ever done, it's about the behavior more than it is about the words. So taking on a play that is so visceral and so physical and so behaviorally oriented was really an interesting challenge.
Now that speaks a little bit about your appetite for theater. Let's talk about you personally now. Where were you born? Where did
I was born in Washington, D.C.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
My family, Virginian, South Carolinian. My folks moved down here when I was in high school from the D.C. area, and I've lived here off and on over the years.
So you went to public schools here?
No, I went to a high school up in Maryland. I went to a Quaker high school up in Maryland,
okay.
and yeah.
Okay.
And then when I was in college, they had moved down here, and I began to live here and spent a good bit of time here, 4 or 5 years here in the 80s, and then another stint in the 90s.
Okay. So did you go to public schools in D.C. or in
I went to public schools in Maryland
as well? Okay.
And then the Quaker school was a private school, the high school I went to.
Oh, that was a high school. Okay. All right. So listen, when you began to discover your interest in theater, what was it that let you know that, okay, this is something I want to do? Was there any particular moment, any particular...
My father had been an actor.
Okay.
My family was preachers and teachers on the mother's side, but my father had started out as an actor and then had a couple of kids and shifted his life to be a businessman. But my mother had been a singer, so there was a lot of arts in the family growing up. And somewhere in childhood or high school, I discovered both an affinity and a love. My father convinced me to go to get a liberal arts education, and then if I wanted to pursue theater, to do it after that.
Okay.
And I took that advice. Went to Dartmouth and majored in oral tradition, actually, like cultural anthropology, folklore.
Interesting.
But I did some theater. And then I came down here, and I had applied to graduate school in folklore studies at UNC, and I was probably going to get in. I'd already collected folklore and music in Ireland on a grant, and I was kind of advanced for my age. But I was also offered some parts in Shakespeare by the Sea, the festival that was starting out at the beach.
At Virginia Beach.
Right. And the night before I was going to UNC for the interviews, I went and saw Zeffirelli's film of Romeo and Juliet. And it just went all the way in. It just went all the way inside me. And I knew I couldn't do both because the dates conflicted. So I kind of knew I was going to do that Shakespeare festival. And I knew it was, if not a life choice, I knew it was at least a 10 or 15-year choice. Turns out it was a life choice. So at that crossroads between academics and art, that's what happened. I went ahead and did the interview, but all the way down, I was on the bus. All the way down, I kind of was thinking about Zeffirelli's play and Shakespeare and theater and art, and I didn't look back.
So tell us a little bit more about what you've done here locally. I know that at the Virginia Stage Company you mentioned earlier, you've done several different productions. What have you done?
Well, recently I've directed, like 4 or 5 years ago, I was here and did Billy Bishop Goes to War,
Right.
Hank Williams' Lost Highway, A Moon for the Misbegotten, and To Kill a Mockingbird. Back in the 80s, I acted in Amadeus and Morocco and The Beastly Beatitudes of Balthazar B. Those are my Virginia Stage Company credits.
And outside of the area, outside of the Stage Company, where else I know you were done
Yeah,
Lake
I
Tahoe.
work a lot. This year I did a show at Next Act in Milwaukee. Then I had an adaptation of a Faulkner novel produced at the Alabama Shakespeare Festival. Then I directed at Great Lakes Theater in Cleveland. It moved to the Idaho Shakespeare Festival. Then it moved to the Lake Tahoe Shakespeare Festival. I taught at Berkeley Rep School. I kind of been working the regional circuit.
So you have worked as an actor and as a director.
Mostly as a director, sometimes as a writer, adapter,
Okay.
and yes, as an actor now and then. I took a tour in India a few years ago and directed the piece, but also acted in it, so I could go. And I was at Milwaukee Rep for 8 years as the associate AD, so I was really producing then
Right.
also.
We were off to fight the Hun. We would shoot him with a gun. Our medals would shine like a saber in the sun. We were off to fight the Hun, and it looked like lots of fun. Somehow it didn't seem like war at all, at all, at all. Somehow it didn't seem like war at all.
I think when you haven't been in a war for a while, you gotta take what you can get. I mean, Canada, 1914, they must have been pretty desperate. Yeah? Take me, for example. 20 years old. A convicted liar and cheat. I mean, I'm on record as the worst student, RMC, the Royal Military College in Kingston, Ontario. I'm on record as the worst student they ever had. I join up, they make me an officer, a lieutenant in the Mississauga Horse. All I can say is they must have been scraping the bottom of the barrel.
We were off to fight the Hun,
Though hardly anyone had ever read about a battle.
much less seen a Lewis gun. We were off to fight the Hun, and it looked like lots of fun. Somehow it didn't seem like war at all, at all, at all. Somehow it didn't seem like war at all. Yeah. It looked like it was going to be a great war.
Also.
What do you find most fulfilling? I guess you do more directing than acting, but
I find directing most fulfilling.
and
I think.
why is that? Is it because of the challenge that's involved, or
Yeah, something about the leadership aspect of that, and something about empowering people and then letting go and being independent of the thing. It's really a unique job because you're like a midwife. You want to be obsolete. You want to do your job and then let go. So I find that exciting always. But acting is fun. Acting is like playing sports, and directing is like coaching sports.
right? Is there one show that you've directed that stands out more than any other that you found most rewarding?
No, there's not one. There are 5 or 6. One of them is Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, which I did at Milwaukee Rep. Yeah, that one certainly stands out. I adapted Huck Finn out there. That was
Interesting.
And directed it.
How did you?
It was sort of a postmodern adaptation in which old Huck and old Jim appear. They're like 80, 90, 100 years old. And old Huck has stolen Mark Twain's lamp, and he rubs it like a magic lamp, and the story comes back to life. And then they're commenting on the story and interacting with the story sort of in a modern way, and then get caught up in it. And there was musicians. I was mixing black and white Southern musics, and so really sort of a meditation on race. Huck Finn, the book on race.
Now you mentioned that acting, you compared it to sports. You know, the athleticism. I mean, there's a bit of athleticism in this particular
Absolutely.
production. But using that sports analogy, was there a particular role that you've done that you found most fulfilling?
Wow.
You know, I keep trying to get you to single out one particular thing. You know?
Well, I singled out a play I directed. I don't act a lot these days, so I would go back to, in conservatory I did a bunch of Jamie Tyrone from Moon for the Misbegotten, which I then later directed several times. That play spoke to me powerfully. That comes to mind right now. I liked when we did The Blood Knot.
Yeah, I enjoyed that tremendously.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to the acting thing.
Okay.
Which role? I'm going to ask you this again. But which role did you find most fulfilling, most rewarding, or most challenging?
Boy, it's
That's
really
a three-part
hard.
question, right?
Yeah. It's acting being something that I did a lot of early on and then shifted into directing. It's really hard to pick one role. What I will say is that over time, doing Shakespeare festivals, 3 here and then in Williamsburg and then up at the Shakespeare Theater in D.C., I kind of got to a place where speaking verse began to be very natural and easy. And that sense of gaining mastery of speaking Shakespeare language was maybe one of the most exciting things that happened to me in my development as an actor. And that certainly has helped in my directing of Shakespeare and understanding of the musicality and the emotional connection one can get through that language.
So you're working as an actor to some degree help inform your work as a director.
Totally, and I think all directors should have to act now and then.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What can we expect from Edward Morgan in the future?
Well, I don't know. I'm working on a play right now set in Norfolk. Maybe that'll end up on this stage. I hope so. And
Give us just a tease. You have to give us a little bit of a tease.
Well, it's a woman who's working as a psychic, and some of the people around her and how they begin to act with her. It's a react with her and enact with her. It's a comedy, and set in Norfolk. It's modern. Yeah.
I was in prison when the Great Mississippi Flood in 1927 hit.
Turn out there! Everybody out! The levee bounce landing went out an hour ago. Get up out of it! The levee's gone and the water's coming. Come on, let's go!
The warden ordered me to take a skiff out into the chaos and save who I could.
You follow the tops of them telephone poles till you come to the roof of a filling station. It's on a bayou and the treetops are sticking up. Follow that bayou till you come to a cypress snag with a woman in it.
I was 8 months pregnant and clinging to the limb of a tree. Water kept rising. Then he came.
What about this woman and her child? What are they to you?
I aim to bring him back, like I said.
That's all there is to it, huh?
Hey, quoi c'était ça pour faire?
No, see, we're not man and wife.
Pas de bêtises.
No.
Lâche pas là.
That ain't my baby, and we don't sleep together.
Arrête ça, toi!
You're making him mad.
Well, he's making me mad.
Just never mind.
I'm just trying to
Never
show.
mind. We'll work it out when he goes in the other room.
How old's your boy?
3 days.
3 days. Who delivered it?
I did it myself.
You done right well. Why don't I take a look at him?
He's fine.
I'm sure he is, but I'm a doctor.
He's fine.
No. Let me see. Come on now, come on. Let me see you. Come on. Where's father?
I don't know.
You know, I am so glad that we've had an opportunity to chat and reflect back on the Blood Night. We started to talk about the Blood Night earlier. That was a very, very interesting experience. And
Yeah.
it gave us an opportunity to work as brothers, as much as we're playing brothers. In this particular piece, K2, these gentlemen, they have a brotherhood that is defined by some polarity between their personalities.
Yeah.
Was there anything about that drew you to that particular piece, reflecting on the Blood Night?
I didn't think so much about the Blood Knot
I'm sure.
when I took it on,
Right.
but it is an interesting parallel. You know, that play for me and a lot of the work I've done has sort of focused on race and the family that we are as Americans and our history, our shared history, black and white especially, but our shared history and all that. This is a completely different kind of thing,
Sure.
although it touches on that from, you know, a little bit politically as a point of view. But Blood Knot for me was about brotherhood, but then also about race. And this play is about brotherhood and loyalty in that sense, but not about race.
No, not
Yeah,
about race.
yeah.
It only surfaces when they talk about the
Right.
legal system.
Different points of view.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I have often compared directing to like conducting a human symphony, and you've directed shows where there were large casts. What appeal, or did it have any particular appeal to you, directing a show with just two characters?
Yeah, intimacy. The intimacy of the event, the scale of what they do. I mean, large-scale plays are spectacle plays much more, and you're orchestrating more people and more events and more transitions, but it's almost easier to sort of keep an unbroken line of truth, an organic line of truth with a smaller cast, more intimate play. I've done about half and half, and I wouldn't necessarily say that the big productions are my favorites. It really depends on the whole experience. You know, there's the writing, and then there's how it lands in an audience, and then there's what happens in the rehearsal process with the actors and with the designers. All of that is part of what makes it, you know, a favorite or a special experience for me.
I truly want to thank you for giving us this interview today. It's always a pleasure to sit down and chat with you.
Thank you, man.
To now share you with thousands of friends that I might have out in TV land. Thank
That
you
sounds
so very
great.
much, Morgan.
Thank you, man. All right.